You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Welcome to the Big Circus Tent podcast in the sky, filled with lions, tigers, and bears, and Toto too. Welcome to the show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate being part of the Chris Voss Show family, the family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your mother-in-law. So there's that. As always, put your arm around your friends, neighbors, relatives. Say, you need to subscribe to the Chris Voss Show because I need 5 people on my MLM Chris Voss Show downline. No, it's not an MLM, but please do refer to the show. YouTube.com/Chris Voss, Goodreads.com/Chris Voss, and LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. We just put the latest billionaire interview out on the LinkedIn newsletter. You really should subscribe to that, or the Chris Voss Show podcast newsletter. You can subscribe to that as well. That thing's blowing up though on LinkedIn. That LinkedIn has got some stuff going on, I hear. Some stuff. It's really hot right now, to quote Zoolander. Anyway, we're going to be talking about murdering murderesses on the show today. We have Patty McCracken, a brilliant author. She's written her newest book, The Angel Makers, Arsenic, a Midwife, and Modern History's Most Astonishing Murder Ring. She's on the show with us to talk to us about her new book. Came out March 14th. Is it March 14th yet? I think it's comes out tomorrow. Wow, that tells you where we're at. We're having a bit of a comedy before the show. Patty pointed out that I was in the doldrums of depression and grief stricken with the daylight savings time conversion, where we sprung forward over the weekend. And I said, yeah, I'm feeling under the weather. I'm feeling kind of low. And she says, you're suffering from the 8 stages of grief, of the loss of an hour. And I realized that she is correct. Not only that is Monday, which is also another grief loss. So I'm either in the stages of fear, anger, denial, acceptance, confusion, despair, content rules. I don't know what that means, and celebration. I'm certainly not in the celebration mode. I think I'm at confusion. So I think that's what we land on. Welcome to the show, Patty. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm also in, some stage of grief at my lost hour. So,
there you go.
We can cry together.
Maybe we should have just a quiet moment on the show for a second, so we mourn the loss of
moment of silence. Moment of silence for the loss.
Moment of silence for the loss.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have to give it a lot of time. I think just a little space there was good enough because it was only an hour. Right, now I'm at the point of grief where I'm minimalizing it. And probably denial. That's probably denial and minimalization. So anyway, for those of you who are suffering from the loss and the grief and the stages of grief for your last hour, we have fine entertainment brought to you by Patty. Patty, congratulations on the new book. This is an awesome real story that's going to be really interesting. I think you're going to love this, folks, if you love true crime. Patty, give us your .com so people can find you, or wherever you want people to look at you on the internet and get to know you better.
Yeah, my name is Patty McCracken, so it's pattymccracken.com.
There you go. And so you've written this new book. Give us like a 30. What motivated you want to write this book? Let's start with the who, how, where, and why.
Well, I started with an article, and actually, this is not my newest book. This is my first book because it actually took me so long to write. I could have probably written like 3 or 4 more in the time that it took me to write this one. But yeah, I wrote it as an article and I thought it was done. When we're journalists, you sort of like, all right, move on to the next one. And this just wouldn't leave me alone. So I found myself at parties going, I wrote this weird article a year ago, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. And everyone's like, that sounds like a book, and you're, yeah, but I don't write books. I do 1,500 words, 2,000 max. And, that caught up with me because 130 some thousand words later, yeah. So it just was one of those things where I couldn't put the baby to bed. She kept getting back up again, it's like, story's done. It's done. Nope, it's not done. So it wasn't done. And so I just went digging into the archives and decided, if I'm going to stay up at night, I may as well stay up at night actually working on the story rather than thinking about working on it.
There you go. So you're award-winning journalist. Your articles appeared in Smithsonian, Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, many other publications. You worked in various newsrooms, including the Chicago Tribune, and twice a Knight International Press Fellow. So, what publication did you put this out on that got the first going, and evidently it influenced a few other publications on the story and stuff as well?
It kind of did. It actually was supposed to be slated for The Guardian, and The Guardian that's in the UK, and it was slated for their Sunday magazine. And I got bumped out because another paper that I had pitched and didn't hear back from decided to run their own story. So I got scooped by my own story, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. And it ended up appearing in an obscure I don't even know if it exists anymore, and I don't remember the name of it, but it did get out there, and it did get the ball rolling in some weird ways that sort of the end of the story comes back. But yeah, it did get it out there, and it got the attention of, did what it needed to do. And here I am today.
Okay. So give us a 30-foot overview of what the story's about.
Well, there was this midwife. You got your jammies on, and you got your little bed. I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. All right.
Oh, this sounds good. This is the one where I'm not going to sleep for the rest of the night.
Yeah, this is the one where you need to leave the light on.
I think we did those in the Boy Scouts. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I have to have the flashlight up.
I'm ready. Let me grab my pillow here.
Yeah. There was a midwife in a very small village in Hungary, and she would trot over to the local store, and she'd buy a handful of flypaper, and she'd go back home, and she would distill arsenic from the flypaper. Took a long time. It was a painstaking process. And she would put the vials in her pantry, and she would save one vial and put it in her apron pocket. So you imagine she's like a babushka. She would walk around in the babushka uniform and the apron. And she would go around to her neighbor women, and she would say, "Why are you bothering with him? I have a solution." And she literally had a solution. And she would say, "I can help you. I have a way," she would say. So she would go to women who she knew were having trouble, difficult situations in their marriage. I should put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she kept doing that, and she kept doing that. And there were actually other women in the village who were doing this. And there were actually other women in other villages in Hungary, villages in Austria. This was a quiet way to get rid of a husband that was abusing you.
Wow.
But most of the women, all of the women except Auntie Susie, were doing it as a compassionate thing to help their sister or their friend or their mother or something. Mm-hmm. And weren't expecting anything in return. It was just a way to get out of a difficult situation. Mm-hmm. But with Auntie Susie, it was a business. She made a lot of money on it. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
And you bill her as the 1920s midwife who may have been the century's most prolific killer, leading a murdering of women responsible for the deaths of at least 160 men. That's quite a business going on there.
Yeah. Well, she didn't do it overnight. She was, she did it. It happened over the course of, the book starts in 1916. She started before then, but I could never pinpoint when. And it ends in 1929 when everything sort of came to light. But yeah, it happened over the course of some years. And it was always the same method. And she would make a deal with them. And she would say, you can give me half the money up front, then another portion, not at the funeral, when he dies, and then another final portion 6 months after he dies. So she had a whole plan. She had a business plan for it, for better or for worse.
This is interesting. There's what's that old line? Arsenic and old lace?
Yeah.
I think there was a movie about it.
Yeah. This is a real life arsenic and old lace, except it's not ours, but there definitely was that. And she was helping them get rid of abusive husbands. That's where it all starts and ends, really. But as you see in the book, there are also some women who were nefarious they were very, they were out to just gain from this. So it was a really mixed. Everyone does keep trying to draw a straight line as to who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. And it's like everybody and nobody. I mean, there's no straight line in any of this. This happened in the sense that definitely the reason it really happened and the reason it really took off was because of abuse, and because there was nobody in the village also to either help the women get out of their situation or and there was no police force in the village. So there was nobody sort of watching them. And the head of the village would be like the mayor, was absolutely uninterested in anything that was going on with the peasants. If it didn't involve hunting and it didn't involve drinking, he didn't want anything to do with it. So people were desperate to get his attention. At a certain point, they were figuring it out. And he was just like, no, you silly peasants, stop complaining. You're always making a mountain out of them all. Go solve your own problems. So they were pretty much left to their own devices. Whether it be their husband that was abusing them, or whether it be, the murders that were going on around them that people were trying to report and nobody was paying any attention.
Wow. Now, some use the arsenic. You build it as inheritance powder. That's kind of an interesting term.
That is and it doesn't necessarily apply in my story. It didn't really apply to the one, but the French used to call it inheritance powder.
Oh, okay.
So this is what I'm saying. Nagarev didn't invent this as a means for murder.
Wow.
And Hungary didn't invent this as a means for murder. This was sort of a way to, because women couldn't own property. And so you can imagine a situation, and let me be as compassionate as I can towards a woman who would be in that situation. If she loses her property, then she loses her means of living or something. So you could imagine an extreme situation, or you can imagine somebody more nefarious who just goes, oh, more for me.
Now, how does this story come to light? Because, it's kind of I think a newer story. How did it come out? How did they discover this and stuff? And what sort of research did you have to do to put this together? Well,
it came to light through anonymous notes. Finally through anonymous notes. And there was also an attempted murder in a nearby village that sort of finally, wake up these police officers and get them to do what they're paid to do, and wake them up to go, oh my God, something's going, wait, what? So finally, and it was just this frenzy of activity. I mean, it was an absolute frenzy. And so all the people in the village were like, people in the village were like, they had never seen so many what they called trouser wearing men, men in the suits had just come in droves and taken over their village and put guards at the village so nobody could leave unless, unless you burrow out. Yeah. And so it was just absolutely taken over. And as far as the research goes, I mean, that's why it took me so long, because there's a lot to look into. And I wanted to also look at, the research, everything around it, the village, what was it like, and everything that was going on in Hungary at that time, which was also an absolute circus of things going on at the end of World War I and stuff. But I did hire an assistant who was just an absolute gift. He was and is a historian of that specific region, and he knew exactly what I wanted. I had to get through a couple till I got him. He knew exactly what I wanted. When he started just going in through the details of like what movies were playing, I'm like, I found my man. I found my man.
There you go.
It was exactly what I need to get more information than I could ever need, and just sift through what was going to be useful to me to build back to life. Yeah.
And this is interesting. The New York Times, I guess, covered it in when the story came to light in 1929. Was there a lot of detail that you were able to gather from them?
There was a lot of detail. They weren't always accurate, but as that would happen, but they were mostly accurate. But it was crazy. I mean, you imagine people descending on this village and the town where the trials were taking place. They had to sell tickets to the trials because so many people wanted to get in.
Wow.
And the press was there from the New York Times, from German newspapers, British newspapers, French. I mean, it was just a mob, an absolute mob.
There you go. Well, I've been single all my life, and I think you just cemented that I will stay single all my life after hearing this story. So now I'm not going to sleep for sure.
Just watch the wine. Just watch the wine being poured. Know its source.
There you go. Well, I've had a few girlfriends look me dead in the eye after we were breaking up or after a breakup and said, if I could kill you, I would, just so you can't be with any other women. And they were dead serious. Hell hath no fury.
Well,
so I've seen that look.
Yeah, I'd say don't use this as a user manual, okay? And by the way, they don't have arsenic on flypaper anymore, so don't also if you're going to find any recipe there. So
I'm going to prepare my own drinks from here on out with all my girlfriends.
Exactly.
That's what I'm going to do. And a lot of husbands right now are getting really nervous. I actually joke with my husband friends. I'm like, he's like, oh, I don't feel well today. I'm like, it's the arsenic your wife's putting in your coffee. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, have you seen yourself? I mean, you're awful. You're a horrible husband.
You're losing your hair. That's why.
You're losing your hair. I mean, she's, you know, when we travel with my friends, we do like a big events together, and I'll be like, hey, you know, like a wife will call or something, or my wife's not answering the phone or something. Like, she's probably with the pool boy. Sure. And my friends will go, but we don't have a pool. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the problem. She has a pool boy and you don't have a pool. You get it?
Right. She's either with the pool boy or plotting your murder. So
exactly. Both, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're both probably plotting your murder. So you'll end up drowning in the pool, and people won't go, wow, that's weird that happened. He had a pool boy. Why didn't the pool boy save him? Anyway, so I give my husband friends a lot of jokes. So now you're giving them a new terror to live by. Well, this is pretty insightful, and what a historic story, the interesting things that you do. So should we give away what happens at the end? There's a big trial, and do they flush out all these murders and stuff?
Yeah, there's several trials, and the trials happen in groups. And I think it was really like orchestrated. The prosecutor was brilliant. Mm-hmm. The prosecutor was absolutely brilliant. And while I was researching this, it was really fascinating because you think, 100 years ago, how'd they do things? This guy could have prosecuted any case today in America, and he would have done. They used the same tactics, you know? Mm-hmm. He knew what he was doing. He was a smart guy. He knew to make friends with one of his closest friends was a local reporter, mm-hmm. and it really was a deep friendship, but it was also a calculated friendship because he knew how to contain the press. He knew who to feed it to and how it would sort of fan out. He knew exactly how to play it. And he also knew exactly how to play the trials and get what he wanted. And it was all really dramatic, but he was, full of flair. Very, very smart guy. He's, mm-hmm. I think Hungary should be proud of him. But they tried him over the course of like a year and a half, really, and they did it in groups of women who had some kind of connection and to the deaths that they were doing, that they'd committed, the murders they'd committed.
This is really interesting. I mean, like I said, when I first saw the book, I thought this must be a novel, and then the more I looked into it, I'm like, this is for real, eh? Like people are really doing this.
This is for real, and it was sort of like when somebody asked me early on, they said, well, why did they do this? And it was more like why became why not, if nobody's catching your sister-in-law who did it to her husband or, somebody you grew up with who did, nobody's catching them. And you're dealing with your husband who's beaten you. And, you're like, well, I get away with it too, because nobody's been caught. And so they just started getting away with it. And, it's the midwife seemed untouchable.
Wow.
And it's important also to note, midwives were central figures in villages in Eastern Europe. And they were the doctor. They were like practicing really high level plant medicine. They were the doctor who couldn't get into the village. So she was fixing hernias. She was fixing headaches. She was everything to them. And she was also like a shaman. So they had a certain respect, awe, and fear of her because she sort of dealt with the spirit world as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this was typical not just of Auntie Susie, the midwife in Nagarev. It was typical of all midwives in that point in Europe, even, up through World War I. So they were kind of scared of her too. So the kind of, she kept them on their toes,
So in the thing here, it says 160 deaths, but I'm reading down below. It could have been anywhere from 600 to 60 to 300 deaths over 15 years. Is that?
The prosecutor felt that there were 162 men that he could dig up their graves and find arsenic in.
Wow.
He wasn't allowed to prosecute all those because they didn't have the money. They didn't have, some of the women who would have killed him were already dead anyway by now, because it happened so long ago. So the courts put a stop on him that he could not dig past 20 years. He felt the records would show that it went to 162. He felt that it was possible that there could be 300 or more.
Wow. That is crazy. This would make a great movie,
Yeah, it
this
would
make a great movie.
We also had people, and this wasn't just Nagarev. This, like I said before, it fanned out into other villages, and there were other women doing it. So you can't really draw a line for Auntie Susie being responsible for 162 or 300. But Jack McCormick, the New York Times reporter, said she brought wholesale murder to Nagarev, and he's right about that.
Wow. That is crazy, man. I mean, I would have been killed off a long time ago by my exes. I mean, my biggest crime, according to them, in most relationships, is leaving my socks and underwear on the floor in the morning, and then not committing. So there's that. But yeah, I would have been aced a long time ago just over that.
You leave that dirty underwear. After 8, 9, 10 days, it's enough to where's the flypaper?
Well, I don't wear it that long. I mean, I just set them on the floor in the morning in the socks. But it's always funny. They'll pick up the 200 items from the kids that are every day. But somehow I'm the, I don't know. There's a lot of issues with me.
I just see a big stick with your underpants on the end of them and you're flinging them and just
Yeah, one day I made a giant pile of all the kids' things that were on the floor, or kids' things, and I was like, so my 4 items here and these 200 items that were left on the floor here this morning, and I'm the horrific boyfriend.
Her answer to that? Her answer to that is, you're not a kid.
Well, she did laugh really hard because I caught her. She was like, you busted me. It was all negotiation, but in the end, I'm probably never going to get married now that I can find it.
Again, bring your own bottle, BYOB, and pour your own bottle.
There's a funny TikTok that thing that's going around where after wives will bring their husband a coffee after they've had a fight. And he looks at her and goes, "You made me coffee," and what?
Why you
what? Yeah. We just had a fight, and he'll go out. Oh, I'm going to go outside. To throw it out. So maybe this is a real big thing that husbands are worried about. I don't know.
Yeah, men get a little bit nervous, and they're always sort of like, what are you doing? What's going on?
There you go. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Don't make them angry. So anything more we want to tease out of the book before we go?
I would say that, it wasn't just the wine Auntie Susie wanted to say, she would always say the first method. So you got to be careful anything you eat. She always liked to put it in something thick, like soup, she would say. Yeah. So she would put it in wine because they were always drinking wine and that was the easiest access to it. So I'd say be careful whatever you eat. So if you didn't, if you need to sleep with the light on tonight, sleep with the light on. It's okay.
If I ever get married, I'm going to have one of those, like Putin had a taste tester.
Yes.
Kings have someone to test their food. I think that's what I'll have. I think that's why you have kids, is so that you feed the kids first and the kids live, then you go and eat your wife's cooking. So there's that. I don't know. These are just jokes, people.
Yeah, you practice on the littles. Yeah, I don't know.
Feed some to the dog. Make sure the dog doesn't croak over.
Right. the cat doing? Yeah.
There you go. Well, this will keep my arsenic husband joke and pool boy joke going for a lot years to come.
Well,
Thanks, Patty. This has been fun to have on the show, and lots of great jokes we got out of it. And of course, I'm going to have to go work the rest of the week through my stages of grief. So I'm glad you brought that joke to light. That was very funny.
yeah, we absolutely have to grieve this lost hour.
Yeah.
Say goodbye. Do what you need to do. Hold space for it.
I think the service for the missed day will be held tomorrow on the podcast. We'll hold a whole full service. There'll be priests and probably some singing of the chapel or something, and some sort of memorial with an organ or something we'll have on the show. That might be a whole show. Maybe we can make that happen.
You can maybe do some chanting or something.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to mourn the loss of Sunday, of an hour.
Yes.
Most people remember that hour. They did some video games. Some people got some extra sleep. Most people were extra sleeping, and now that hour is gone. It's kind of like jet lag that just kind of lasts forever. And you're going to spend the next 6 months or something
6 months
wishing you could get that back.
Right.
Just constantly wishing you get it back, and then you'll get it back, and then it'll get taken away from you. It's just a constant tease of, you want it? Oh, no, you almost had it. Oh, no, there you got it. Oh, no, it's gone again. Yeah, so maybe there'll be a memorial service next podcast for tomorrow. But thank you.
R.I.P. in a tombstone.
There you go. We'll order one up, and we'll spend some time. I'll have to find how much is this going to cost. This might cost some money. It usually does to bury an hour. I don't know. How big of a box do I need for that? Anyway, Patty, it's been wonderful to have you on the show and very insightful. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, I'm at www.pattymccracken.com.
There you go. And thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
There you go. Lots of fun and great jokes. And an insightful book of history. The one thing man can learn from his history is man never learns from his history. So damn it, people, start learning from your history already. There you go.
Please.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, and our big LinkedIn networks and all the stuff we do over there. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. Don't give people arsenic. And we'll see you next time.